Hello, this is SpongicX, and I just saw the highly anticipated Super Mario Bros. Movie by Universal, Illumination, and Nintendo. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to see a Mario Brothers movie. Ever since I first fell in love with the series after playing Super Mario 64 as a kid back in Christmas of 1998. Admittedly, I was a bit bummed out when I heard Illumination of all companies was hired to make it, along with being directed by the directors of Teen Titans Go. I hate that show. Cannot stand the writing of it. So, yeah, it made me kind of nervous. But when the first trailer for it was released, I was actually impressed and hoped the final product would not disappoint. Well, a day before the movie's release, Rotten Tomatoes scores came in, and despite early previewers claiming the movie was good, the critic score, on the other hand, was pretty bad, 43%. Yikes. Many critics panned the movie for having a very generic and lackluster plot, and otherwise, Rotten Tomatoes score keeps teeter-tottering between 43 to 50 at the moment, and audience scores, on the other hand, have been a lot better, 98% rankings. So very mixed reviews all around. So after being so hyped up to see this and finally seeing it, despite knowing these mixed review scores, what were my thoughts on the film overall? I actually enjoyed it. And I honestly found it to be Illumination's best film yet, and that's not really saying much coming from what else they made, like Secret Life of Pets, The Minions, I don't know, but... So, the movie was visually pleasing, the action was fun and exciting, the characters and environments in the Mario games made a spectacular transition to the big screen. Many scenes were packed with Easter eggs from Mario games, going from, like, the original Donkey Kong arcade all the way up to Super Mario Odyssey for Switch. Even includes some cameos from other Nintendo games, like you see characters from Punch-Out on posters. It implies like the characters from Punch-Out are actual boxers in Mario's world. You see some references to Duck Hunt and even Star Fox, like how in Mario's room you saw like a little Arwing figure hanging above Mario's TV. That was kind of cool. And surprisingly, I didn't see a single reference to Legend of Zelda. You think, like, obviously a lot of the references here were ones that were based on games that Shigeru Miyamoto was heavily involved in, considering how he was heavily involved with this movie's production. And so you can definitely see sprinkles of his tastes and creations here and there, but not a single Zelda reference. That was kind of shocking. Maybe there is one in there and I just didn't see it, but I just kept seeing Duck Hunt and Punch-Out throughout the movie. I did not see a single Zelda reference. The music was a great symphonic love letter to many musical arrangements from the likes of the original Super Mario Bros. For NES all the way up to Captain Toad for Wii U. And yeah, I was surprised with how much of this, the original score in this was actually consisted of remakes of actual music from the games, and that was really neat. I kind of wish the Sonic movie did that. The Sonic movie barely had any music references to the game. Just, oh, haha, occasionally you hear Green Hill Zone. But, like, here, not only did you hear, like, pieces from, like, the original Mario games, even some of the modern ones in the background, but you even, like, how Luigi's ringtone was actually the little GameCube opening, little sound effect of, like, the cube rolling around. I thought that was awesome. So, while the movie was overall enjoyable, I do have to agree with the critics and say that I wish the story itself was a lot better. The writing feels too lackluster, just like every other Illumination film. It just, I don't know. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. It's Mario. None of his games have had good stories, ever. I mean, most of it is just, oh, Princess gets kidnapped by Big Turtle. Stop him. Save Princess. Get a kiss. Yay. You know, so, yeah, it's true, but every video game from Mario's original time had very dumb plots as well. It wasn't just Mario, you know. Mario and a lot of other video games around the era when, like, Mario games first came out, they focused on, like, very bland fairy tale-like stories, because all that really mattered was the gameplay. They just had very loose narratives. But yeah, as video games went along, Mario's storytelling never went beyond its original fairy tale storytelling, unlike franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog or Ninja Gaiden, where as they went along, they got more complex stories with more in-depth characters, and you can't say the same for Mario, unfortunately. Mario just stuck with its fairy tale roots and never grew out of it. But just because Nintendo refuses to let Mario have engaging stories, it didn't excuse them from not doing the same for a movie adaptation. The movie did allow more freedom for the Mario characters, who could be described as very generic mascot characters without much personality in the video games, but The movie does allow the characters to actually have scripted dialogue for once with voice acting. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing how Mario isn't even allowed to have speech bubbles in his own games. He's just allowed to go wahoo and yahoo nowadays. And a lot of us are just like, let Mario speak again. He was able to speak in like the old cartoons or some of the really earliest video games. So why are they so against like Mario speak for himself? So whether you like the new voice or not, I just think it's cool to finally be able to hear Mario speak sentences for once along with the other characters. They took some liberties in this movie compared to the video games. Like, well, not a whole lot though, but like Nintendo is very strict with how they want their characters portrayed in the game. So there's a lot of things you'll never see the characters doing, and see. There's a lot of like Mario's world that they would never reveal. So it's kind of neat to see how the movie itself actually did have like their own interpretations of the stuff. Like we actually see Mario and Luigi's parents for once. We get a glimpse into Peach's origin story for how she ended up in the Mushroom Kingdom. So it's like stuff that could have been interesting. Unfortunately, the movie does nothing with them, or it glosses over them too quickly without ever going back to it. And I doubt a lot of this was just for sequel baiting or foreshadowing. I honestly feel like they did not have any plans for this, or if they did, they never bothered going back to it. And I mean, it's like that for many Illumination films. Many of them are just stories where, and then this happened without any explanation. It just keeps moving on from scene to scene without any good transitions, and that's what this movie was kind of plagued with throughout. However, unlike the other critics, I don't think the film's lack of a decent or well-developed plot ruins the film for me. I was still entertained overall, despite the film's shortcomings with its plot, but I can't help but wish the movie surprised me more. I'm not disappointed or depressed that the film's story wasn't great, but that doesn't mean I don't wish it wasn't any better. I do wish it was better. I wanted to have scenes that got me like to cheer. I remember there were scenes in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 that actually made me go like, yes, when I saw it, and I didn't really have much of that when watching this, unfortunately. But it was still a fun movie overall. I just wish the story was more exciting. This is a film that will likely be remembered more for its visuals and action scenes and not for the plot itself. I feel like the previews gave out way too much of this film. The only scenes that felt to have been left out of the previews and trailers were a majority of the scenes of Mario and Luigi back in Brooklyn before they get sent to the Mushroom Kingdom, and the entire final battle. This review will contain a plot synopsis and will contain major spoilers, so you have been warned. Anyways, let's get into the story of this film. The film is basically a cinematic retelling of Mario and Luigi's origin story, showing how they went from nobody plumbers to the superheroic saviors of the magical Mushroom Kingdom. The film opens up exactly where the film's opening trailer started, with Bowser and his army invading a penguin kingdom and stealing a Starman power-up. And I don't know, it looks like the Power Stars from like Mario 64, but based on like the power it gives, it's really more like the Starman from the original Mario game, the invincibility power-up. And I never liked that name, Starman, but I always like Power Star better. But I'm not even, I think they just called it the Star in this, though. Although, based on how it reacts later in the film, it definitely was a Starman power-up. But it's kind of strange how they act like in this world there's only one Starman, despite how, that was like a power-up that was scattered throughout many different levels in the original Mario game. So I don't know why they, either way, like the Starman is basically the plot's all-powerful MacGuffin, I guess. So meanwhile, back in Brooklyn, we see Mario and Luigi are basically the laughingstock plumbers of the town. So basically, this was a scene that was also ruined with the trailer, so it really spoiled the humor we could have had. So yeah, we see like a TV commercial for their plumbing service, and their theme song is the Mario Brothers rap from the original Super Mario Brothers Super Show intro, and they even had Princess Toadstool's original voice actress from the same show as the clueless actress posing as a customer for their laughably bad ad, and it was also kind of funny to see how Mario and Luigi use exaggerated Italian accents to mimic the more iconic Mario and Luigi voices from the video games, voiced by Charles Martinet. But they only use that voice for the commercials. They make it seem like it wasn't even their idea. It was like their manager's idea or whatever. So Charles Martinet, the iconic voice of Mario and Luigi from the video games, he does make a brief cameo as another plumber who is also playing Donkey Kong Arcade in the background. So basically, it was just a joke of, Mario and Luigi were making fun of, like, how stupid the Italian voices in their commercial sound, and then they asked that plumber playing the Donkey Kong arcade game, like, do you think those voices are bad? And he's like, no, they're good, woohoo! So Um, I do have to question why he was playing a Donkey Kong arcade machine. It's kind of questionable considering how Donkey Kong turned out to be an actual character in this world, but from a different dimension. Or, yeah, this movie has a lot of plot holes that don't seem to add up. For instance, like I find it hard to believe that okay, so it's one thing for no one in Brooklyn who have ever been able to find like the warp pipe that leads to the Mushroom Kingdom, but I find it hard to believe that no one in the Mushroom Kingdom ever came across that warp pipe that led to Brooklyn or whatnot. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you could say it's a problem that's been even in as far back as like the original Super Mario Bros. Super Show, but that was back when writing wasn't really a priority in kid shows, so I don't know. I feel like nowadays, like considering how this was a movie and they tried making it feel more movie-like, I felt like they could have had a more creative reason for why, yeah, they tried having a more creative reason for why people in the human world couldn't find the Mushroom Kingdom, but why not the other way around? I don't get it. It's like, it's like in the human world, it's like hidden deep in the sewers. It's like impossible for humans to get down there. Mario and Luigi just happen to stumble upon it by accident, and then meanwhile, it's like in the Mushroom Kingdom, the warp pipe is like way out in the open. It's like there's all these mushrooms surrounding it, so I don't see how like people who are just strolling through the mushroom forest and just look up and go like, "Oh, look, a green pipe. I wonder where it leads." So yeah, it's just so questionable. So back to Charles Martinet, I feel many will probably feel underwhelmed by his portrayal in this movie, considering how the Nintendo Direct tried cheering people up when they said so although Mario will be voiced by Chris Pratt, the original voice of Mario, Charles Martinet, still has a role in this movie. It made many to like cross their fingers and hope, oh, please let him be the voice of Wario, who makes like an appearance in this movie. And yeah, it's like that would have been perfect. And unfortunately, Wario isn't even in this movie. So just that character who happens to look and sound like the original Mario, that's all he's used for. Just to remind you, oh, it's the original voice of Mario. He's there in the background. That's kind of underwhelming, to be honest. Now, we see Mario and Luigi go home for dinner at their parents', and we see how the dad is not happy with Mario's job as a plumber, nor how he dragged his little brother Luigi into the job as well. So it's trying to set up that whole drama of a main character trying to make their dad proud of them cliche, but it fails to make it engaging or understandable. It feels so rushed and generic, it just has nothing that makes it stand out. There are other movies that have done this plot so much better, like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and I did get a laugh out of how the dad highly resembled Talon from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the Lon Lon Ranch level. I mean, that character design was already a parody of Mario to begin with, and so I'm not sure if that was intentional, but that was the vibe I got. It's like, let's just use Talon's design, say that's Mario's dad. I thought that was hilarious. Speaking of which, aside from the dad, though, just like the whole family in general felt very underdeveloped as well. It gives us a look at Mario's surprisingly big family, but we don't get any introduction to any of them. So we don't even know who a lot of them are. They don't even give us a name or like what kind of role they are. Because, well, we do see like they have the obvious, the mom and dad. They even flat out refer to them as mom and dad. But then there's like two others, if I recall, and there might have been more in fact. But it's like the others are just like boy characters who also look like they kind of resemble Luigi or Mario, and you don't know, are these Mario and Luigi's brothers as well? Are they their cousins or what? The movie doesn't care enough to establish these characters, so why should we feel bummed that Mario feels like a disappointment to them if the movie refuses to care as well? Another example I want to use is the Green Eggs and Ham TV show. Like, there was that one episode, Home, where we see, like, a Guy Am I, and we see his family. And that one did a much better job at showing how he feels like the screw up of the family and how he, like, we see like how the others are so successful because like they're going around the dinner table sharing their accomplishments, and you don't really get that in this. So it's like it's trying to copy off what other movies or shows do, but it doesn't understand why they work for other stories. It's just rushing to it, trying to it wants the audience so badly to feel for this, but it fails. It just doesn't put enough time or effort to, so it just makes you wonder what was the point of these scenes. So, yeah, this really is one of those movies where its best excuse for moving along is just to do the old "and then this happens" cliche to move things along. So, yeah, I don't know. It's not the best way to pace a film. Just to suddenly say, like, oh, and then this happens, and, or, I don't know. Like, it gets worse, like, eventually, like, there are discussions between characters like Princess Peach or Magic Koopa and Bowser where that's, like, where the writing was at its worst, but I'll get to that later. So, anyways, as Mario is bummed out for being a disappointment, he's watching TV and he sees a commercial, a news report about like a big plumbing issue in the center of Brooklyn. So He drags Luigi in to investigate the sewers to help out, only to stumble upon a warp pipe, which it sucks the two up, leading for Luigi to end up in the Darklands, while Mario ends up in the Mushroom Kingdom. So, for a movie called The Super Mario Brothers, it's really disappointing how Luigi really got the short end of the stick, since most of his scenes consist of him being tied up or caged. Now, I get that they wanted to reinvent Princess Peach and make her a kick-butt ruler. They didn't want her to be the damsel in distress anymore, but why did they have to go full role reversal with her and Luigi? They could have made a much better role for Peach without having to have Luigi at the expense. It just felt very unfair. Like I said, it just does not go with the title. This is called the Super Mario Bros. Movie, not the Mario and Peach movie. So, I gotta admit, though, the scene with Luigi being chased by the dry bones was a pretty intense and chilling scene. I don't know, maybe years from now there'll be, new YouTubers who are coming up with their own top 10 scariest scenes from animated films they grew up with, and someone on there is probably going to share stories of how Luigi getting chased by skeleton Koopas messed up their childhood or something, and hey, it could happen. but seriously, I always found the dry bones to be a bit of a joke, like, enemy in the Mario games, and they were honestly pretty terrifying in the Mario movie, and I absolutely agree with Charlie Day, the voice of Luigi. We need a Luigi's Mansion movie spin-off, and the scene with Luigi in the Darklands shows how and why a movie of Luigi's Mansion could work. So, as Mario ends up in the Mushroom Kingdom, he meets Captain Toad. I mean, all of this was shown in the previews. So, as Mario describes how his brother got separated into a portal to the Darklands, Toad realizes Luigi was sent to Bowser. Toad warns Mario that Bowser is a deadly threat and takes him to the princess's castle for help. We find Peach briefing with her people over how Bowser has gotten the Starman and is plotting to wipe out and rule over the other kingdoms, with the Mushroom Kingdom being Bowser's next target. This was one of the biggest pet peeves I had with the movie, how frequently Peach is mentioning that she knows what Bowser is up to, or how Magic Koopa keeps reporting into Bowser that he knows what Princess or Mario is up to, and it just makes no sense, because we get no confirmation on how or why they are getting this information. What are their sources? Like in any other movie, they'd have it where, like, a character either has, like, a magical crystal ball, or they're able to, like, fly off and message back and forth. We don't get any of that. Like, you got the perfect character for this, Magic Koopa. He could easily, like, fly over there and spy on them and keep reporting back to Bowser. They don't do that. Even the Paper Mario games did this with, what was her name? Cammy Koopa? They did it with her, and or hell, they could have even had it where he peeks into his crystal ball on his magic staff and he can spy on them. No, none of that. He just keeps coming in to say, like, the princess has a new champion, or so. It just makes no sense. It's like, where did you get this? The storytelling in this is just so rushed. It took me out of the experience plenty of times, and it doesn't help that the film's attempts at humor in between weren't very funny either. I mean, it wasn't painfully unfunny, though. It wasn't enough to make me roll my eyes. There was no, like, memes, toilet paper. I mean, there were no memes, toilet humor, or bad pop culture references, at least. But, yeah, otherwise, I just wish this film could have made me laugh more. There were a few chuckles, just nothing like... I remember even the Sonic movies and the Detective Pikachu movies had scenes that actually had me, burst out laughing. I didn't have any... moments where I just burst out laughing with this, and I wish I could have. I wanted this movie to make me laugh, but... So, Peach wants to enlist the Kong Kingdom for help, but feels that she can't do it alone for some reason, until she stumbles upon Mario, and she suddenly decides that Mario's the one who can help her. Why? I don't know. It's implied because he's human like her, I guess? I don't know, but... Because, yeah, honestly, Mario was the only other human aside from her in that kingdom at the moment. And so, otherwise, that just doesn't explain why she couldn't, like... So, she then forces Mario to go through a training montage until he's ready. And she tries introducing him to the world's power-ups that obviously based on the ones from the games. And I do find it weird how they flat out called them power-ups. It's one thing to call them that in the video games. Like, that's what the players are supposed to refer to them as. But it's kind of weird how the characters themselves are referring to them as power-ups. It's kind of weird. They could have easily, like, given them their own name, like the Magical Shrooms. Okay, I can see why they didn't go with that name, maybe. But you see what I mean, though. It's just kind of a weird... It's one thing to use the term power-ups in video game term, but in an actual movie setting, it's just kind of weird wording. But yeah, like it just kind of questioned me though. Like the reason why Mario had to be Peach's champion just didn't make any sense. Like why did it have to be him? Why couldn't she train any of her toads to do it? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like if you're a fan of the video games, you know how useless the toads can be. I can understand that, but this movie doesn't do a good job at showing or introducing the toads as being incompetent. The only joke they have is the one that goes like, "What can we do? Look at us, we're adorable." Ha ha. Okay, that doesn't really explain anything then. I mean, you could argue that Mario and Peach are adorable and they can still kick butt, so what's the Toad's excuses? So, yeah, like, otherwise, as a fan of the games, I know that the Toads are useless, but the movie itself could have done a better job at convincing the audience why Peach needs someone other than the Toads. So, otherwise, Captain Toad, he decides to come along because he's the only Toad who seems to be brave and wanting to help, and so she lets him tag along, and so thank goodness that Toad in this was nowhere near as annoying as he is in the games. I thought Captain Toad surprisingly didn't have that very big of a role. You think he would have been like a big side character role throughout, and I barely remember him showing up. It's like he's there, but he barely has any lines. So at least they toned him back a bit. Like if it was just like the Toads in the video games where they're constantly shouting, "Yeah, woohoo!" Oh, that would have been annoying. That would not have been a fun 2 hours to sit through. So yeah, luckily they knew to keep the Toads' voices down throughout the movie. Thank goodness. So, anyways, the three adventure off to the Kong Kingdom. So, not much happens during these scenes, but we do get some gorgeous visuals and references to other Mario games and levels. We do get a moment where Peach tries having a heart-to-heart with Mario. She wants to ask, like, where he's from, and so Mario describes a bit of himself and Luigi, and eventually leads to Peach questioning where she's from and wondering if she's also from Mario's world. Um, she has a flashback to how when she was just a baby, the only thing she could remember is how she stumbled through a warp pipe and ended up with the Toads who adopted her and rose her to become their princess, basically. And so it's kind of nice that they try giving Peach a backstory, because yeah, a lot of like every Mario fan will always question like, where's the king of the Mushroom Kingdom? Who is Peach's dad? And so at least now we kind of got some canonical reasoning. I mean, it's not much reasoning though, but at least it finally explains why she's alone. And so you could say maybe it's sequel baiting, maybe a sequel will delve more into her backstory, but I don't know. A part of you kind of wishes the movie itself did it because it just made this scene feel pointless in the end. Probably just an excuse to sell Baby Peach merchandise. I mean, they did the same thing with there was a flashback to where Luigi is like thinking back to Mario and how he always stood up for him. And so we get a flashback to when they were babies, and they actually used the baby Mario and baby Luigi designs. I thought that was kind of funny, but again, it felt like a pointless scene that goes nowhere. So, admittedly, the film does get a lot better once they finally make it to the Kong Kingdom. Though I did find the whole setting of it kind of questionable because it just felt like they wanted to have an excuse to have a big Mario Kart inspired action sequence, but why were the Kongs the ones who bring in the carts? It just felt kind of out of place. I mean, have you ever played the Donkey Kong Country games? Nowhere does it imply that these Kongs are mechanics, except for Funky Kong maybe, but Funky Kong wasn't even in this story, unless he was just like a real minor background character, because you do get a few background characters. Like a lot of fans already spotted out. Oh, both Diddy Kong, Dixie, and Chunky Kong are in this film, along with Swanky Kong. But Diddy even gets a name drop at one point. But otherwise, it's like yeah, they're not really like important characters. I don't think you'll be seeing concept art of these characters. They were just background characters for this film. So yeah, the Kongs being like engineers who build like the carts that are introduced in Mario Kart, that felt kind of out of place, and it also felt kind of strange for the Kongs to be living in a kingdom with like an emperor and stuff like that, because in the Donkey Kong Country games it was just an island or a country, not an entire kingdom, um, and so Cranky Kong as the emperor was kind of weird. But speaking of which, I enjoyed most of the film's voice acting. It's like a lot of the voices that I was unsure of actually fit the characters just fine, including Chris Pratt as Mario. I had no problems with him in the final film compared to like when I first heard him in the trailers. He surprisingly did a much better job than the trailers led on. But Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong was just wrong. Cranky should sound like a cranky, grumpy, old angry Kong. He's just angry with today's generation, how video games aren't like the ones he started back then. And Instead, he's just loud and too young sounding for his age in this film. It just, I don't know, that was the only voice that bothered me in this film. I thought the rest of the voice cast did a fine job, but it's a shame too. I actually do think Fred Armisen had some funny skits in Saturday Night Live. That's what I mostly knew him from, but I just don't think he did a good job as Cranky Kong, unfortunately. Yeah, I know not everyone was on board with Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, and I mean, he basically did nothing to disguise his voice, but I thought it worked regardless. I thought it was funny to hear Seth Rogen's voice coming from Donkey Kong. I didn't care that he didn't try to make it sound more ape-like or anything. And I'll bet most of you who saw the trailers already know where this scene was going. So basically, Peach is going to ask for the Kong's help. Cranky refuses, so Mario offers to fight the kingdom's defender in combat for their approval. So it leads to Mario having to fight Cranky's son, Donkey Kong. And I loved how when Donkey Kong was introduced, his intro music was the DK rap from Donkey Kong 64. And it wasn't like a recomposed or reorchestrated version of it. It was like the original soundtrack. You flat out hear like Grant Kirkhope saying, DK, Donkey Kong. They just kept looping that over and over. And poor Grant Kirkhope, though, he really got screwed over with the end credits of this film. He got no name drop whatsoever. So I all of a sudden get that joke. Chris Seaver, the voice of Conquer, he posted people at the premiere of the Mario movie, and he said someone was left out, and he did a photo edit where Grant Kirkhope was in it. And so only now do I get what he was joking about. So yeah, so during the film's end credits, during the music credits, it says when it comes to the DK rap, it just says DK rap from Donkey Kong 64. I mean, ouch. They should have said DK rap from Donkey Kong 64 by Grant Kirkhope or something, but the other music tracks got credit for who wrote and composed or sang the music, but poor Kirkhope, he really got screwed over in the credits here. I mean, maybe he's ashamed of the song and didn't want his name to be in the credits, I don't know, but I know like a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with the DK rap. It was always a guilty pleasure for me. I never hated it. I always thought it was fun as a kid, and to this day, I just think it's a good source of, memes and laughs, and I never had a problem with it. But, yeah, poor Grant Kirkhope, though. He deserved better. So, after a fun and comical fight scene, Mario manages to defeat Donkey Kong, causing the Kong army to join forces with Peach. And so our heroes basically gear up and get into, like, these carts, and they, get all this ammo and barrels and stuff like that into the cars, along with the banana peels, and I'll admit, that was like the only clever thing that came to why the Kongs were the ones with the carts, and it explains like where the banana power-up came from. It's because like the Kongs are constantly driving around their town, and they're just lazily eating bananas and just, lazily littering the banana peels everywhere. And so that kind of gave an introduction to why they use the banana peels as a power-up, and that was like the only clever thing to come from it. Otherwise, yeah, it just felt very out of place. So the characters race off onto a rainbow road that is supposed to lead to Bowser's fortress. Meanwhile, throughout the film, we got plenty of scenes where we see Bowser trying to practice proposing to Princess Peach, and so just like in the games, he's in love with her, and so he's a little more brutal in this though, because he's basically giving her a choice: marry me or die. So even in other games, when she refuses, he tries holding her against her will. This one, it's like he's giving her the choice: join me or I will kill you and everything you love. And so, yeah, I don't know, a part of me was worrying, where this movie was going to take Bowser, because, in the early trailer and even the beginning of this film, Bowser was very intimidating, but then there's, a scene where he's singing a love ballad about Princess Peach on a piano, and right there, you're starting to think, oh no, Bowser's going to be a goofball villain throughout, isn't he? And he kind of is, but the movie, at least, and you could say it's just because he's only goofy when he's thinking about Princess Peach, though. But luckily, the whole movie does not focus on that. Eventually, when he finally lays his eyes on Mario, he gets, a burning hatred for him. And that brings out, the deadly, threatening version of Bowser that we've all been waiting for. So I thought this movie actually did a good job with Bowser. It did a good job at showing both sides of Bowser. The bumbling, idiotic side we've been seeing in most recent Mario games, and the more deadly, intimidating version we've seen or imagined Bowser as in the early games. I remember when I first played Mario 64, I thought Bowser was a big, intimidating character, and it kind of disappointed me how over the years Nintendo started slowly treating him like a dumb goofball. And so I like how this movie did a good mixture of it. They knew when to have Bowser be a goofball, but then when they wanted him to be fierce and intimidating, oh boy, they did. And I'll get to that later. But basically foreshadowing for the final battle, I guess. But we see like Bowser, he's trying to practice proposing to Princess Peach. There's even a part where he forces Magic Koopa to dress up as Princess Peach and practice with him. It was kind of funny, but so otherwise when he's being described about like how Mario was with her and Bowser's like asking does she like him, and when when Magic Koopa describes how she seems impressed with him, and it just like makes Bowser furious. And so it kind of reminds me of Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. It's like, starting off, the character's like a big goofball villain, but then when he gets so jealous of another character who's he thinks is after his woman, that just makes him more furious and demented. And I thought the movie did a good job at delving further into Bowser's fury and insanity. And also, we see how the Shy Guy minions capture Luigi, and they eventually manage to bring them to Bowser, and they bring him to Bowser, and so Bowser plots to kill Luigi in front of Mario just to, get back at him, basically. And so Bowser sends an army of Koopas and weaponized carts after Mario and pals, and we get a really fun and exciting chase scene. Basically a Mad Max Mario Kart race, and a bunch of explosions and vehicles getting blown up. It was a pretty fun sequence, all on the backdrop of Rainbow Road. And so DK reluctantly teams up with Mario to take out a blue Koopa in a heavily armored death trap. Mario and DK manage to blow up the blue Koopa's vehicle in a fiery explosion, but in a fun twist that might make a lot of Mario Kart fans like gasp. And so the Koopa turned out to be a spiny blue-shelled paratroopa. And so he tucks in, starts spinning violently, and he starts flying around Mario and DK. As soon as you see that, it's like, oh no. He's like a living blue shell from the Mario Kart games. And so he then dive bombs into them with a big blue explosion, causing the Rainbow Road to shatter as Mario and Donkey Kong fall into the ocean and get eaten by the big eel from Mario 64. Admittedly, this part made me go, oh dang, when I first saw it. As soon as I saw the blue Koopa laughing after the explosion, he's like, "You can't defeat me! I'm a blue spine Koopa or paratrooper." It's like, oh my god, it's like that was just brilliant fan service right there, and it's kind of underwhelming though, because you think after that introduction we would have seen more of this character, and that was the last we saw of him. It's like, right there, that basically showed that this guy is even more powerful than Bowser. And then, what did they do with this character? They got rid of him for the rest of the movie, don't even say what happened to him? That was very forced. He's just gone for the rest of the film. What the heck? You can't just introduce a character like that and then just kill them off. Or, well, they didn't even kill him off, he just never came back. It's like, what was the deal with that? So, I mean, seriously, if this movie ever gets a sequel, Blue Spine Koopa needs to be the villain. We need a name for this character, for crying out loud. But, so, with Mario and DK supposedly defeated, Magic Koopa manages to enslave the Kongs and bring them to Bowser. Peach feels, sad for Mario and Donkey Kong possibly dying, and so she rides off on her motorcycle with Captain Toad with her, and they manage to escape capture, and they make it back to the Mushroom Kingdom to warn the Toads to evacuate before Bowser arrives. So Bowser's Flying Fortress reaches Peach's castle, and he gives his marriage proposal to her. Peach refuses until Bowser threatens to have Magic Koopa kill Captain Toad. Peach gives in, and Bowser makes preparations for his wedding. So, after more bickering between Mario and Donkey Kong, they reluctantly team up again to escape the giant eel. They find Donkey Kong's broken cart. It got eaten up by the eel, and so they take one of the barrel rocket thrusters from it, and they decide to use it as a ride to get out of the eel. Very similar to the rocket barrel segments from the Donkey Kong Country Returns game, so that was a nice little reference. I just felt kind of bummed out they didn't use the music from that. That would have been so awesome, but... So we cut to a scene where Bowser is holding a wedding in his fortress above Peach's castle. The two are wearing their wedding outfits from Mario Odyssey, and there's a lot of fun stuff in the backgrounds during this. One of the guests bringing in a Yoshi egg, which actually does come back at the end credits, and just some of the attendants though. I loved how King Boo and King Bob-omb were seen attending the wedding, and rest in peace, King Bob-omb. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. But so as the wedding starts, Bowser is about to sacrifice Luigi and the Kongs by dumping their cages into a lava pit, but Peach reveals she was never going to marry him, and she pulls out an ice flower and freezes Bowser and fights off his angered guests. So, meanwhile, Mario and Donkey Kong are racing up to Bowser's fortress to try to assist Peach and save Luigi and all that, along with the other trapped Kongs and other trapped kingdom rulers and people and all that. And so, Mario manages to find the Tanuki suit in one of the power-up blocks. The Tanuki Super Mario Bros. 3. He uses it to fly up and rescue Luigi. He reunites with Princess Peach. Bowser, who's still frozen, sees Peach happy with Mario, and that just infuriates him to the point where he smashes out of his icy prison. And he then activates a bonsai bill, the big bullet bills from the first world in Super Mario World. So he causes that to launch out of his the volcano on his lair, and it is aiming right at Peach's castle. So Mario, who is still in the Tanuki suit, manages to distract the bonsai bill to chase after him. So Mario manages to lead the bonsai bill into a warp pipe, the same one that took him from Brooklyn to the Mushroom Kingdom. And so it causes the bonsai bill to basically get sucked up into the little dimensions in between the warp zones, and he causes an explosion. Somehow the explosion in the warp pipe causes a big vacuum effect where it sucks Bowser's fortress along with everyone on it back into Brooklyn. So Bowser's fortress causes some destruction as it crash lands into the center of Brooklyn, and an enraged Bowser angrily starts beating up Mario. And admittedly, this scene was pretty brutal. We see Bowser violently smashing Mario into vehicles, windows, and buildings. It's they got as much violence as they could for a PG movie, I guess. But so with Mario weakened, Peach and DK try to fight back, but are no match for Bowser. So Mario looks defeated as he sees his beaten up self, in the reflection of a TV he was smashed into, and the broken TV starts playing a broken loop of his commercial with Luigi, and the commercial, as it constantly keeps looping back and forth in front of Mario, it just reminds Mario of his love for his brother, and it encourages him to fight back Bowser. And so Peach manages to get the Starman from Bowser, and she throws it to Mario. Seriously, why didn't she just use it when she had it? It just makes no sense. So Bowser tries burning Mario from a distance with his fire breath, but Luigi manages to save Mario by using a sewer silo lid as a shield. So as Mario and Luigi have a heart-to-heart moment, it looks like Bowser burned them alive, but the brothers manage to grab the Starman in time, and turning them into the invincible Super Mario Brothers. So the two brothers heroically charge through Bowser's army, defeating them all with one hit, as the two team up and give Bowser a brutal beating. With Bowser weakened, Peach force feeds Bowser a blue mini mushroom from the game New Super Mario Bros., causing Bowser to shrink, as Captain Toad traps Bowser in a jar. We see Mario's dad say how proud he is of Luigi and Mario as the town of Brooklyn start cheering for the Super Mario Brothers. So the movie's ending was kind of anticlimactic. It just randomly cuts to Mario and Luigi waking up, now living in the Mushroom Kingdom, as they race off towards the castle. It doesn't bother showing what happens next or what happened in between. I don't know, a part of me just wanted to see a proper interaction with Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. It would have been nice to see them discussing what are they going to do now that Bowser's defeated and all that, and the movie just rushes to have this weird ending. And admittedly, the credits were entertaining, though. It had a beautiful medley of Mario tunes playing with a beautiful cinematic orchestra playing in the background, and we also get two end credit scenes, one during the credits and one after the credits. So the first one is an extended version of Bowser's cringy piano love ballad for Peach, and it reveals that he's still tiny and trapped in a jar at Peach's castle, with Captain Toad being the guard. And so then the after credit scene is a character tease for a possible sequel. Now, I know what a lot of you were thinking. A lot of you were, I remember a lot of people were speculating, watch the teaser trailer or the teaser ending for this, the post-credit scene will have either Wario, Rosalina, or Daisy show up. None of those characters. The answer will surprise you. It wasn't, it's like a character so obvious you wouldn't expect it, but... So anyways, it goes back to the sewers in Brooklyn. We see a Yoshi egg, the same one that was at, Bowser's wedding. And the egg begins hatching, the screen fades to black, and we hear the iconic Yoshi! So, I was surprised they used the actual voice clip for Yoshi, and I feared, if Yoshi was ever going to be in these movies, they were going to hire an actor Oh god, we do not need a reminder of that awful Mario World cartoon. So I'm glad to see that if Yoshi will be brought into if we ever get a sequel, it's heavily implying that Yoshi will be the big sequel bait character. And it's like, rest assured, they're just going to use his old voice clips, which nothing wrong with that. Yoshi sounds just fine and adorable with his in game voice clips from Yoshi's story. I am perfectly fine with that. Um, but considering how Yoshi is my favorite Mario character, it surprised me that Yoshi was the sequel bait character, but I don't know. The scene still felt kind of disappointing, or underwhelming at least. I mean, I would have rather had Yoshi in the film to begin with. I mean, he easily could have been a background character. I mean, look at how many background characters there were in this film that amounted to nothing. It's like Captain Toad could have been written out of the film and nothing would have changed. Luigi could have been written out of the film and nothing would have changed. Dare I say, even Princess Peach could have been written out of the film and nothing could have changed. That's how bland the story was. So there just was no excuse for why Yoshi couldn't have been in this. It's like, aside from that brief glimpse of a stampede of Yoshis running by a river during a travel montage, the ending tease didn't even bother showing us Yoshi. It's like the screen fades to black before the egg even hatches, and so it's nowhere near as exciting as like the Tails or Shadow teaser endings we got from the first two Sonic movies. So that was the Mario movie, and overall, it was a fun family film with tons of love and attention for fans of the beloved long-running video game series. It is arguably one of the most faithful video game movie adaptations I've ever seen, and even with the small changes that was made with it. But is it enough to say it's the best video game adaptation ever? In my opinion, no. If I were to make a top 4 list of what I consider to be the best video game adaptations, movie-wise, that I've seen at least, the Mario movie would actually be number 3. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 would be my number 1 favorite, Detective Pikachu being number 2, and Sonic the Hedgehog 1 being my number 4. So, yeah, still being in the top 3 is still a good honor, though. I've seen plenty of bad video game movie adaptations, or even heard, there's plenty I've never seen, but even heard that are just god-awful. So, the fact that, I can at least say Mario's good enough to be in the top 3. So, um, otherwise, out of video game movies, the Mario movie had one of the most colorful and most interesting worlds out of any video game movie I've seen. It's just that the plot holds it back from being anything greater. I just feel like the Sonic movies and Detective Pikachu movies had more going for them aside from just Easter eggs. I mean, the Easter eggs helped make those movies enjoyable, but it relied on more than just that, which is, I hate to say it, but that's mostly what this Mario movie relied on. Just like modern day episodes of SpongeBob, it just relies too much on past nostalgia. What else do you have to tell? And so I just felt like both the Sonic movies and Detective Pikachu just had better scripts, better characters, better drama, and better humor. I do really appreciate how the Mario movie was at least fully animated, and it makes me hope to someday see Sonic the Hedgehog get a theatrical animated film as well. Um, so the Mario Bros. Movie, it didn't wow or amaze me, but it was still a fun time overall, and it leaves me hoping for more. I would love to see sequels, spin-offs, and maybe even TV shows to bring in more characters like Wario, Waluigi, Rosalina, the rest of the DK crew, and more. And I know Seth Rogen said how he would love to see a Donkey Kong Country movie, but I guess they'd have to rename it Donkey Kong Kingdom after what this movie's world implies. And, Charlie Day said he'd love a Luigi's Mansion film, and I would also love that. I can imagine they'd probably make another Mario movie before they do spin-offs like that, though, but heck, I'd love to see a Super Smash Bros. Movie someday. But uh, aside from just Mario, though, I'd love to see other Nintendo franchises get the animated film treatment, especially Star Fox, Legend of Zelda, Kirby, and Metroid. That would be awesome. So if you're a fan of Mario and Nintendo games, I highly recommend the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It is many times better than the first attempt at making a Mario movie. Wow, it took me till the end of the review to actually bring up that train wreck. The movie that did so poorly that it broke Nintendo's trust into ever letting another company do anything with Mario for roughly 30 years. It's even a miracle Nintendo allowed Universal to make a Mario movie, or a theme park for that matter, out of their IPs. And from what I've seen, the Nintendo World theme park has been a huge success, and it's still, they still have to have the one in Florida come out, and I can imagine that the Mario movie will sell well, although the premiere in my small town was surprisingly very small. It could have just been because it was a bad time of the day. I saw it at a 2:15 showing, so kids were still in school, adults were still at work, so maybe the film will sell better later tonight, or I don't know. But either way, the film wasn't perfect, But at least the film was able to put a smile on my face, and that's what people want when they go into a movie they've been waiting years for. They want it to make them happy, and that's all that matters. Well, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching. See you next time, and have a great day.